Hello, welcome to my studio. Today we're going to do hand building with clay, air drying clay specifically. Take it out of the bag and make sure you put the rest that you're not using in a sealed plastic bag. Otherwise, the clay will dry out. Always use a sponge. It's the best way to wet the clay quickly. Warm it in your hands by making it into a ball. This will also make the clay more malleable. Throw it against the surface that you're working on so that you have all sides flat. This will take all air pockets out of the clay. You'll have to do this several times. Putting in a ball, wedging it, rolling it with the palms of your hands. Roll and roll and roll. Sometimes you'll add a little bit of water to keep it wet. Roll it again. Squish it on the sides. Now you start to flattening it with your hand. This prepares it for becoming a slab. Put it on each side so you can smooth it as you go along. Now you're going to create a slab with a bottle or slab roller or rolling pin. I'm using the slab roller here just so you can see what I'm doing. This takes a while. As you roll the clay out, it becomes longer and wider and thinner in depth. But you don't want it to be too thin because it becomes too flimsy. So keep going slowly and don't push on the clay too hard. You're smoothing it as you go along, and sometimes you'll take some water and you'll smooth around the edges just to keep them from drying out. You can also dab your hand on the sponge. Your hand or the slab roller should have a little moisture on it at all times. Keep going until it's smooth. Make sure it's not sticking. It may stick to the surface of the plastic board that I have it on, which is fine, it'll peel away. Now I want it to measure 4 by 6. So I'm going to keep rolling it until it matches the piece of paper that I've pre-measured. I'm using that as a template. Both sides. The slab should be rolled on both sides, flipping it over 2 or 3 times. You can see the slab getting longer and longer, more and more even. Takes a little time and patience, wetting it with that sponge again around the edges and the surface. Now I'm matching up the slab with a piece of paper, and it seems like a perfect size. I'm taking another piece of paper because it's the same size and it's already dirty. And I'm starting my reductive technique of cutting away the clay to make an even slab. And that should be the last piece. Sometimes you're scoring and not cutting all the way through. I have grabbed a paper towel and I'm also using a cloth. So now I'm making the armature out of a toilet paper roll and a piece of paper, which is 4 by 6. And I am taping that, and I'm going to put that inside the clay, which you'll see eventually. The clay will be wrapped around. The pieces on the side can be kept wet by either moving the sponge across it or your hand. There's that rag I was talking about. Now, I want to score these two pieces and join them together. So I'm scratching lines on the edges of each piece, pretty close together, crisscrossing. And then I'm going to use this gook called slurry, which has a mixture of clay and water, and it serves like a glue to adhere the two pieces together. Smoothing, smoothing, smoothing. This stuff is messy, but it really works, except when it doesn't. Now I am coiling, and the coil will be mushed into the seam to make the seal stronger. Now the clay is a little thin, so I should have made the slab, see? I should have made the slab a little thicker. And also the top is too heavy, so maybe it should be a little shorter. So this is how you learn. So I'm sealing, sealing, sealing using the knife, my finger, slurry, little pieces here and there to fill in. Having those small coils on the side, very handy. Oops, where am I going to put it? Okay, over there. Now let's move back to the slab. Let's smooth it. Okay, now we're going to carve. And you might have other kinds of tools. This just allows me to do a fast demo, such as a comb, which pushes in to the clay. Anything that pushes into the clay leaves an impression. And you could go both horizontally and vertically, and you can create a brick design. Also, you can press or emboss by using anything that you have that would leave an indentation, such as my little elephant here. Make sure you wash off your tools. Constantly smoothing. And here's a little jack, like jack and ball. I don't know if you played this when you were a kid. And I'm gouging. I'm using a screwdriver or a Phillips head, and I can poke a hole. I can use a large brush or anything that will penetrate the clay. So that's called gouging. Always smoothing the edges. You can gouge with something that leaves a deeper impression, or you can draw with a needle. So that leaves a deep impression. Those are just binder clips. You can draw with a plastic knife or anything you have. So I'm just smoothing the inside again. I have it upside down. And when you see I turn it back up, I'm not messing up the design that I made. Now I'm pinching. And you have to make sure the clay goes all the way around the armature. So when you pull the clay together, it seals. In addition to using the sponge, your fingers, and the knife. Pushing that clay together. Now you might lose some of the design, but you can always put the indentations back after you smooth the clay. Now, I'm going to join two pieces together to create a slab. And I'll show you how I'm joining them. I'm pretty much gluing them together with the slurry and then rolling them again, the slab roller, which can be a bottle or anything you have. Turning it again, it's always good to work on both sides. Okay. Now I'm putting on wax paper so that I can turn it, move it around, and also remove it from the board when I want to carry it away. I'm going to create the bottom, as you can see, the base, and I'm also removing the last part of the armature. Actually, you could remove it a little bit before this. So I'm using a brush to smooth these seams, or if there's anything that starts to look like it's going to crack. And now I see how strong it is because I can pinch it and create another shape. So I'm going to use the brush and I'm going to make it into a more square, rounded square shape. So I'm just pushing the handle of the brush against the side and then forming the shape with my hands. Always working with water along the way, but not too much. Now I'm putting it against the base, and I am going to form the base by scoring. And then I'll use cutting. This will be the exact size to fit the bottom and secure the sides. I'm going to score because that's the best way to glue the top to the bottom. And I'll use some of the slurry on the sponge and my fingers to seal the gaps. Going around and around and around. It's the only way to get it all to seal. Keep it sturdy, keep it from cracking. Now I'm going to use a coil slab kind of thing that's actually convenient because it's the same shape as the rounded form. And it really does help to secure the base, to have coiling or thin slabs going around a crack or an opening. So, using my fingers again, I'm sealing the base, smushing the clay, flattening it so it's less detectable, using the knife. Sides are drying slightly, but you can still form the shape. Turning it around, another advantage of using the wax paper. And now, if you want to keep the clay wet for a time, 4 days to be exact, then you can wrap it with a wet towel and secure it with saran wrap or other plastic. If you want to dry it and keep the drying process slow to avoid cracking, then you loosely cover the drying structure with plastic so it dries from underneath and not the middle. If it dries from the middle, it'll crack on the sides. And the wax paper will let you carry it away so it's not stuck to the board. Take your pieces if you're going to save them and put them back in the plastic bag. Now, one thing you can do is to stuff the inside with something like aluminum foil, which will also hold it stronger. You can even leave the foil in there if you wanted, and you can put a top on it. You're not baking the clay or firing the clay, so whatever's inside, it doesn't matter. Now, you're going to put it on when you dry it, you're going to put it in a dark corner, and you're going to seal it or put a plastic bag over the top.